Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, we will delve into the topic of coercive control and examine how narcissists employ it as an extremely potent, alarming, and frightening means of exerting control, inflicting abuse, and asserting dominance over their victims. Coercive control is a very severe form of emotional and psychological abuse and is at the core of domestic and family violence. In my view, coercive control is an ever-present tool within the arsenal of a narcissist, and it constitutes a highly grave manifestation of intimate partner violence and child abuse. It is an unpleasant and unsettling topic, to say the least, but it is crucial for us to be informed and comprehend it, enabling us to identify it, should it ever occur in our lives. So first, let's define exactly what coercive control is. Coercive control is a pattern that entails a consistent series of psychological and emotional behaviors or actions, such as intimidation, degradation, and threats, aimed at imposing the abuser's rules and authority on the victim through varying levels of abuse and varying degrees of severity. These tactics are intended to create a state of fear and submission in the victim, especially in the victims of domestic violence, with the goal of stripping away the victim's autonomy. Apart from causing psychological harm, coercive control can even escalate into inflicting physical pain or injury to the victim, especially when the abuser wants to enhance the credibility of a threat. Those closest to people with narcissistic personality disorder, such as a partner, or spouse and children, are at most risk of this torturous behavior. It can range from psycho-emotional to physical and sexual. In child torture and intimate partner coercive control, the abuser intentionally inflicts harm on the victim, even if they later explain their behaviors as lessons or the result of being intoxicated or enraged. The perpetrator's goal is to gain and retain absolute power over all aspects of the victim's thoughts and actions. Covert narcissists are known to render the most subtle and insidious abuse on their partners. And just because it's subtle, it does not mean it's mild. In fact, because it is so subtle, it remains undetected for months, years, or decades, the effects being severe. We'll begin by exploring the type of abuse commonly associated with covert narcissists, characterized by its insidious, pervasive, and toxic nature. This particular form of abuse is marked by passive-aggressive behavior that involves obstructing, sabotaging, undermining, derailing, or challenging the desires, aspirations, tasks, assignments, and agendas of others. It often entails a significant amount of passive aggression. The victim often feels as if they are dying inside. The inability to clearly identify the harmful behaviors makes covert abuse nearly impossible to discern or address. While victims desperately search for answers, the covert abuse continues. Victims suffer in silence without understanding why. This is why covert abuse is known as the silent killer. Now, let's go deeper. Once a covert narcissist selects a target, they make a calculated decision to dismantle that individual's life. The covert narcissist creates intricate webs and coalitions of flying monkeys and recruits people in a variety of ways, such as using sex, money, flirting, all the while pretending or faking as a savior, healer, or rescuer, just to recruit people into their schemes. This is one aspect of what I refer to as the covert or hidden narcissist, a narcissist who conceals their true nature by using various shields. They hide behind individuals, masks, feigned behaviors, societal norms, cultural conventions, superstitions, conspiracy theories, and false beliefs. They also feign empathy and assume roles such as a rescuer, savior, or healer, presenting themselves as exceedingly helpful, even appearing altruistic and compassionate. However, beneath this facade lies a master manipulator. In reality, this type of narcissist is even more malicious, psychopathic, and perilous compared to overt and grandiose narcissists. They have no qualms about sacrificing others or putting even their nearest and dearest to risk, even ruining their lives in order to achieve their goals. As mentioned earlier, the covert narcissist forms secret coalitions and covert alliances that run smear campaigns against the victim, while the narcissist themselves cowardly and cravenly remains hidden behind others, much like a hidden snake in the grass. All of these actions are aimed at gaining control over the situation and over you, ultimately to achieve specific outcomes. These outcomes may include instilling fear, coercing your return, making you feel remorseful, or exacting punitive revenge. Regardless of the scenario, these are the tactics employed by covert narcissists. Narcissists target victims for a multitude of reasons, such as malicious envy, narcissistic rivalry, or when a narcissistic fantasy goes awry. They do so without remorse, believing others deserve it and that others would do the same to them if they were clever enough and/or given the chance. Predominantly, victims of coercive control are intimidated, terrified, and subjected to such terror by the perpetrator that they alter and adjust their routines and modify their behaviors to align with the demands of the abuser. The fundamental driving force behind coercive control is to establish an atmosphere of profound terror, potentially escalating to the point where victims fear for their lives. In the context of coercive control, the second aspect pertains to social isolation. This involves the complete isolation of the victim from their surroundings under the threat of severe consequences. Keep in mind that coercive control exclusively occurs within committed, long-term relationships, as opposed to casual dating or short-term flings. It does not manifest among friends, but rather within deep, intimate partnerships. Coercive control encompasses enforced isolation and the gradual restriction of the victim's life. In simpler terms, the victim is systematically disconnected from everyone else around them. Their sole interaction of the victim is with the coercive controller or abuser. This relationship becomes the victim's only connection to the outside world, their sole source of reality checking, and their only interface with the universe. No other individuals are permitted to interact with the victim, who is forbidden from engaging with others, or socializing, mingling, or going outdoors. These actions are strictly prohibited. Gradually, all aspects of the victim's life are restricted. They abandon their previous hobbies, passions, jobs, and activities. They quit or resign, opting to remain at home and exclusively engage in activities that receive approval from the controller. Should the controller express disapproval for a hobby, it is promptly discarded. Even if the controller finds a particular interest of the victim bothersome, it is swiftly abandoned. Should the controller demand the victim to partake in repetitive or mundane tasks routinely, they comply. As time passes, life becomes more and more restricted, a phenomenon referred to as life constricting. The subsequent stage involves invasive monitoring supervision. This is perhaps one of the most crucial components, especially in scenarios where the victim is constantly monitored and supervised by the perpetrator. The perpetrator possesses complete access to the victim's digital gadgets such as smartphones, laptops, and tablets. They are in possession of the victim's passwords. Every aspect of the victim is under constant observation and control. The perpetrator deploys spyware, malware, keyloggers, and other intrusive tools onto the victim's electronic devices. They want you to know they are watching you, and if you do anything that you are not allowed, then you know without them saying a word that you will be in danger and will have hell to pay. They demand to review the victim's emails, chats, and WhatsApp conversations, leaving no stone unturned. The abuser enjoys unrestricted and unrestrained entry into every fragment of the victim's life, every interaction, spoken or unspoken, and every action, no matter how intimate or private. This pattern is a characteristic display of coercive manipulation. If you act as a slave or as a programmable robot and you respond immediately to the wishes, expectations, and commands of the abuser, you're rewarded. If you don't, you're punished. There'll be a lot of praise and rewards, conditioning the target to live their life according to the terms of the narcissistic individual. The surveillance and monitoring are micro, covering every possible aspect. At this point, the perpetrator goes to such lengths that they even deny the victim the privacy of closing the bathroom door during use. Whether it's when the victim is bathing or showering, the abuser is there, often with the curtain drawn, observing these activities. Even the simple act of changing clothes cannot be done without the abuser's presence. The victim's autonomy is severely restricted. They are unable to go anywhere alone, make phone calls without the abuser eavesdropping either through an extension or by their side, or engage in any activity without the abuser being present to an overwhelming degree of certainty. Even tasks as basic as opening a door, greeting someone, buying groceries, watching TV, or browsing the internet. So much so, if the victim desires to eat something, the abuser denies the request. This is what renders coercive control criminal. It is a pernicious pattern of control, dominance, inequality, and psychological abuse, which is really at the heart of violence within the home. The goal of the perpetrator in this form of abuse is to use a blend of fear, ambient abuse, and domination tactics of coercive control for gaining power and control over their targeted victim, and strip the victim of their self-worth and agency. The repeated behaviors of coercive abuse are ultimately about owning and controlling the victim, with the express intent to remove their freedom. It has nothing to do with love. It is a predatory obsession, which means that it has everything to do with psychological assaults, passive-aggressive insults, ultimatums, and a general loss of liberty for the victim. However, many victims who are being entrapped are highly unlikely to recognize this cunning covert aggression at the beginning of the relationship. The narcissist employs a set of controlling and coercive tactics that unfold gradually over an extended period. The perpetrator's malicious and cunning actions are executed gradually, carried out in clever increasing and intensifying increments. The concept of a continuous timer plays a vital role in the overall process of manipulation because the tactics must be executed in gradual stages without appearing to be rushed. These stages must be small enough to prevent the victim from recognizing the coercive nature of the methods being deployed against them, or from fully realizing the personality changes happening within themselves. These tactics compel the unsuspecting victim to adjust to a sequence of subtle and hidden maneuvers. This pattern is intentionally designed to set the victim up for disempowerment. Slowly but steadily, the perpetrator instills fear in the victim, leading them to suppress their negative emotional reactions and surrender the control of the relationship over to them, keeping them in slave-like conditions in a jail with invisible bars where they suffer intimate terrorism. Unfortunately, because the abuse is so insidious, most victims fail to work out these covert psychological behaviors that are causing them so much anxiety and stress. The victim, like the proverbial frog in the simmering pot, has no idea that they are being psychologically boiled alive. This insidious and calculated, controlled assault on the victims are often described as death by 1,000 cuts. For instance, a few examples of coercive control tactics are being isolated from your family and friends, and even denied access to your children. Being deprived of your basic needs like food, medication, and comfort. Being financially deprived of your own money, and having to account for the money you spend. Losing control of your everyday life, that is, where you go, whom you can see, what you wear, and what you can buy. It also includes interrupting their conversations, filtering who they can see or talk to, and limiting their involvement outside the relationship. The abuser will exhaust the victim to the point where they can't hold down a job, or they'll keep them so occupied at home that they can't attend work. They may purposely make the victim late to the point of job loss, confiscate their phones, and make it extremely challenging to see friends and family. They'll subject the person to extensive criticism to undermine them, putting the target in a subservient position, ultimately causing them to live life according to the narcissistic individual's dictates. Being threatened with violence if you do not behave in a certain way, that is, how you clean the house, cook the meals, perform in the bedroom, etc. Controlling your reproductive choices and sexual health, that is, forbidding the use of contraception from protecting you from STDs or unwanted pregnancy. Being controlled as to where you work, and what type of work you do. Being stopped from working or going to school, college, or university. Having no authority over your accounts. Insisting you answer their phone calls within a certain number of rings. Being deprived of sleep. Subjected to constant criticism, humiliation, intimidation, and degrading name-calling. Being repeatedly put down, telling you that you are worthless. Enduring mental, emotional, physical, and sexual violence. Having your property or household damaged. Forcing you to be part of their criminal activities or child abuse. Threatening to harm or kill you and your children or pets. The cycle of domestic violence with a narcissist or psychopath can also include a tactic known as substance abuse coercion. This is when narcissists and psychopaths encourage the use of drugs or drinking, not just to keep you under the influence, but also keep you under their influence and compliant to more of their abuse. These are just a few examples of coercive control tactics, but the list is endless. Each cut serves to dramatically reduce the victim's space for action by curtailing their freedom in different ways. This form of intimate terrorism creates a feeling of tyranny and entrapment in the victim. This is the reason why it has become a criminal offense under coercive control legislation in intimate or familial relationships in several countries. Once the narcissistic perpetrator manages to isolate their victim and instill in them a trance of fear, they become much easier to control. In effect, the victim's sense of personal agency is vanishing little by little, and soon they may even begin to doubt their sanity. Power control killers get gratification by having power over their victim. We need to be aware that power is the hallmark of pathological narcissistic abuse in all their relationships, domestic and otherwise. Unfortunately, even when the relationship seems to be over, many narcissists are likely to continue making demands on their ex-partners. They will persist in launching attacks, issuing threats, and using intimidation tactics, often to the extent of jeopardizing their ex-partner's mental well-being. Recognizing covert abuse in your relationship may leave you feeling lost, not knowing where to turn for help. It's entirely normal to grapple with a wide range of emotions in this situation, including shame, sadness, anger, rejection, hurt or fear. At this juncture, you likely require support to cope with the trauma you've endured. It may be challenging to fathom how you arrived in this situation and where to go from here. So, here are some suggestions. Firstly, seek community. It's probable that your relationship has left you feeling so isolated that you may not believe you have anyone you can reach out to for assistance. Your closest friends have likely been worried about you for a while, but may not have known how to offer support. They might even be relieved to see you starting to open up. However, when you approach someone, ensure that you feel comfortable sharing with them. Number 2, find a therapist who is specifically trained and experienced in addressing covert abuse, narcissism, and trauma. You need someone who is equipped to deal with the deep emotional pain that the narcissistic abuse has left you with. Post-traumatic stress disorder and complex PTSD require specialized care, so make sure you are with a clinician who is able to assess and treat these issues. Educate yourself on narcissistic abuse. Through learning, you'll gain clarity, and clarity is the initial essential step towards your recovery. Above all, please understand that the abuse is not your fault. You are deserving and hold profound beauty within you. I trust that you found this video helpful and enlightening. Please feel free to share your experiences and thoughts in the comment section below. Please demonstrate your support by giving this video a thumbs up, share it with others, and subscribing to my channel. Be sure to activate the notification bell icon to stay updated and not miss out on my upcoming videos. I express my gratitude to everyone for tuning in and watching. Let us help spread the awareness and lead healthier and fulfilling lives.